Welcome to those of you here in person and those of you joining us virtually. My name is Courtney Kaysen Mann. I'm an audiologist here at Presbyterian Ear Institute. This is our first session of our new audiology series. Today, we are going to be focusing on communication strategies for difficult listening conditions. What are communication strategies? Communication strategies are different techniques that can be implemented to help reduce stress between communication partners and increase comprehension throughout a conversation. Why is it important to implement communication strategies? When there is a disconnect between communication partners, stress, frustration, and anxiety can start to seep in. When either an individual with hearing loss starts to experience these emotions, or their communication partner gets frustrated with needing to repeat him or herself, quality of life starts to decline. Residual effects, such as increased rates of depression or isolation, may start to have an impact. Today we will focus on how breakdowns can occur between talkers, within the message, and because of the environment. There are easy ways to repair these breakdowns. Let's look at each one in depth. First, we'll talk about breakdowns that can occur between talkers. These breakdowns can be caused by things like eye contact and rate of speech. Take a look at these two characters. Bob has hearing loss and is not facing his wife, Susan. Susan has tried asking Bob what he wants for dinner, but he doesn't know that she needs his attention. Susan is growing frustrated, thinking that Bob is not listening to her. It's difficult to hear your conversation partner when you're not making eye contact. This is one of the leading causes of frustration between talkers. How can we fix this? Before starting a conversation, get your conversation partner's attention by using their first name. Give your conversation partner a moment to turn and face you. Once you're making eye contact, then start the conversation. When Susan says Bob's name and then waits for his attention before asking what he would like for dinner, Susan spends less time repeating herself. Are you ready for the next scenario? Here, we have Anne and her granddaughter, Emily. Emily was excited to share with her grandma that she just bought a new car, and she is talking very quickly. Anne is invested in the conversation, but Emily is talking so fast that Anne can't keep up and is simply nodding along. Anne feels anxious and frustrated and hopes that Emily doesn't need a response at any point. Fast rate of speech is very hard for any individual to understand, but especially individuals with hearing loss. Anne can tell that Emily is excited and wants to hear about her new car. Anne reminds Emily to speak a little slower so that she can keep up. Emily slows her rate of speech. Anne is able to easily engage in the conversation and can reciprocate by sharing her own experience about purchasing her first vehicle. Slow, clear speech aids in conversation comprehension and listener enjoyment. Conversation breakdowns can also happen within the message. This can happen when the conversation gets too broad or when gestures do not match comprehension or understanding. Let's take a look. John has just sat down at his table in the dining hall. Michael, his waiter, has approached his table to take his order. Michael starts off the conversation by asking if John had a good weekend and then proceeds to ask if John wants the daily special or something off the menu. John is very confused and knows that he's supposed to tell Michael what he would like to eat. He knows that chicken noodle soup is an option. John nods along and tells Michael that he would like the soup, even though he's had soup the past 4 days and would really like something else. How can we make going to the dining hall less stressful for John? John has just sat down at his table in the dining hall. Michael, his waiter, has approached to take his order. Michael keeps the conversation focused on the task at hand and says, "John, I'm happy you could make it for lunch. Would you like to hear what the special is today?" Michael gives John time to respond and then either shares the special or provides John time to look at the menu. Once John has placed his order, Michael repeats back what John would like. To help Michael know when John is not understanding, John can also shake his head yes or no appropriately to match his comprehension of the conversation. Keeping the topic focused will help alleviate miscommunication and improve conversation comprehension. Let's look at how the environment can impact conversation. Environmental factors like lighting, distractions, and background noise can add to conversation breakdowns. Here we have Violet and Linda. Violet and Linda are having dinner at a restaurant that has dim lighting. They both have hearing loss and depend on lip reading and gestures to ensure that they're following the conversation. They're leaning in close to each other to try to hear and see better, making dinner an unenjoyable experience. With the help of better lighting, Linda and Violet are having a much better time. They have better access to visual cues and have an easier time lip reading and seeing each other's facial expressions. They're able to sit back and enjoy a nice meal. How do distractions impact conversation? Paul is reading the newspaper and watching football on the television. Howard has been asking Paul about tools missing from his toolbox. Paul has been providing non-committal answers, causing Howard to feel very frustrated. What are some things Howard could request of Paul to help the conversation go more smoothly? Howard enters the room and asks Paul for a few moments of his attention so that he can ask a question. Paul pauses the TV and closes his newspaper, showing Howard that he is ready to listen. Howard asks Paul if he borrowed the missing tools from his toolbox. Paul responds that he did borrow them and gets up to retrieve the tools. The lack of environmental distractions helped reduce frustration on Howard's end, and Paul was able to engage fully in the conversation. Let's look at how background noise impacts the flow of conversation. Beth and Roy are in their kitchen. Beth is cooking at the stove and Roy is washing dishes. Roy asks Beth if she had a good time at her book club. Beth doesn't respond, making Roy think that she's ignoring him. Even listeners with normal hearing have a hard time having conversation with the water running and the stove going. How can we help? Beth and Roy wait to talk to each other until they can face each other and reduce background noise. The dishes are done and the dinner is on a low simmer on the stove. Beth and Roy have reduced the distance between them and can focus on the conversation at hand. Reducing background noise is extremely helpful in all situations. When there is loud background noise, our brains have to work harder to pick out speech. Even with the strategies we've talked about above, there will still be breakdowns in conversation. This is normal. To help with those breakdowns, we're going to talk about repair strategies. Repair strategies are tactics that can be used by listeners in conversation to fix a breakdown in communication. Our first repair strategy we're going to discuss is asking for repetition. Here we have Jack and Stephen. Stephen is trying to determine which route their bus will be taking and quickly rattles off a number of places. Jack did not hear everything Stephen said. To ensure that Stephen doesn't feel frustrated, Jack states, "I heard you say we're going to stop at the church, the pharmacy, and the library. What were the last few places you said?" If Jack didn't hear any part of the statement, he could also say, "Stephen, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat what you said?" This lets Stephen know that Jack didn't ignore him and helps him determine which parts need repeated. Another great repair strategy is asking for the conversation topic. Here we have Helen and Martha. They're playing cards with a group of friends. Helen has gotten a little lost in the conversation. She leans over to Martha and asks, "I'm a little lost. What are we talking about?" Martha is able to tell her that they're talking about their friend's vacation to Costa Rica. This helps Helen get back on track. Knowing the conversation topic helps our brain fill in the gaps easier and improves comprehension. The last repair strategy we're going to discuss is asking for clarification. Sam and Tom are out on the golf course. It's windy, and the conversation can get lost easily. Sam is talking, and Tom realizes that he's no longer following what's being said. Tom says, "Wait, which golf course were you talking about?" Like we discussed previously, using parts of the conversation that we heard reduces frustration between conversation partners. It lets your conversation partner know that you are listening. There were simply a few parts that got lost. By specifying what you did hear, it clarifies for the talker what needs to be repeated and helps them determine how they can share the information again in an easier way. Let's summarize what we've learned. When there is a conversation breakdown, it typically happens between talkers, within the message, or because of the environment. We can help with breakdowns between talkers by using first names to start a conversation, making eye contact, and slowing our rate of speech. We can help with breakdowns within the message by keeping the conversation focused on the topic and by ensuring that we're only nodding yes if we're following the conversation. We can help with breakdowns due to the environment by having conversations in well-lit areas, by minimizing distractions, and by reducing background noise. When it comes to repair strategies, we can ask for repetition, ask for the conversation topic, or ask for clarification. Communication strategies are important for all individuals to use, regardless of their hearing status. However, it is also important to participate in a yearly hearing evaluation. If you wear hearing aids or cochlear implants, visit your audiologist to ensure that you have the best programming for your current hearing status. We truly thank you for your time today and hope that you found this information helpful.